Demon King? Secret Stone?
Demon King? Secret Stone?
Secret Stone? Demon King?
Secret. I forgot my line.
Oh, come on! What is
Fine,
wrong
look,
with
it's
you?
a lot to memorize,
too
okay?
long.
Just get it
You
right.
always
always
do
do
around
this.
on
It's
us. We've been here all
always me.
night. I
It's
just want to
always
go
my
home.
fault.
It is
and get
yours.
my
Okay,
jacuzzi.
You're
whose
the one
fault
who
is it
could.
then?
It's not.
Whose
No,
fault
this
is
should be
it?
good.
Whose fault is it?
It's Demon King, okay? It's Demon King. Fuck. Years after defeating Calamity Ganon, Zelda and Link venture beneath the castle to investigate the ruins. To their surprise, they find Ganondorf waiting for them in a mummified state. Link tries to defeat him but ultimately fails and Zelda ends up vanishing. Link manages to make his escape but things aren't looking good. Zelda is AWOL, Hyrule is in disarray, the Sheikah technology is gone. That last bit isn't part of the plot, it's just not there anymore. Because it's not. It's no secret that Tears of the Kingdom ignores continuity for both the series' overall lore and the game that it's meant to be an immediate sequel to. But even though the game's narrative largely disappointed the fanbase, most of them still agree that it's better than Breath of the Wild story, which is apparently just nothing. I don't agree with that though, and wanted to throw my hat into the ring. I do want to stress that Breath of the Wild is a far cry from a masterpiece of literature, but I do find it to be one of the best stories in the franchise, and certainly much better than its sequel. First and foremost, I think it's worth mentioning that story isn't interchangeable with plot, despite how it's commonly used. Story comprises a number of different elements, including plot, but also world building, character development, foreshadowing, themes, and so on and so forth. While it is true that Breath of the Wild's plot is essentially nothing, the overall story has a lot more going for it than Tears of the Kingdom's. The premise for Breath of the Wild is that there's a prophecy portending the arrival of a great calamity, one of Ganon's many reincarnations. At one point he'll get so tired of the same shit happening in every game that he'll manifest as a mindless primal evil and only Zelda can seal him away. The immediate threat is nothing interesting. In fact, this may be the least inspired primary antagonist in the series. But in a way, the story of Breath of the Wild is comparable to Majora's Masks. The actual crisis isn't going to put you on the edge of your seat, but the way the supporting cast reacts to this crisis is handled really well. As I already mentioned, Zelda's role was to use her sealing power to defeat Ganon, but her mother, who was supposed to teach her how to awaken this ability, died when she was very young. On top of that, Zelda isn't particularly interested in magic and shit. She probably wouldn't even play these games. Instead, she's more interested in science and technology, but her father isn't having any of it. He's constantly there to scold her for not having awakened her power, knowing the fate of the world is at stake. When she responds suggesting other means of helping, like repairing the dormant guardians, he seems to think she's focused on goofing off in a serious situation. I really like this, and I can't stress enough how uncommon this is for Nintendo. In a Zelda game, if one character is being hostile and angry in a serious setting, it's almost always a bad guy. On the other hand, the good guys tend to be pure and righteous. But in Breath of the Wild, these characters feel like human beings. They get stressed in times of chaos, they get angry at each other, they feel helpless, they despair. But they also laugh and fuck around and have fun. Ganon himself might be a pretty boring backdrop, but it sets the stage really well for these character interactions. And when Link is thrown into the equation, it gets even more interesting. You see, when Zelda and Link first meet, Zelda does not like him at all, and there's a reason for this. Link was assigned as Zelda's personal guard, but it's not just to protect her. Zelda sees Link as an extension of her father's eyes. With Link following her around all the time, the king is able to keep her under surveillance even when he's not there. That means the scarce moments of reprieve she used to have become essentially non-existent, and this infuriates Zelda. But I think another reason she dislikes Link is envy. She sees Link as someone whose passion, talent, and destiny all align. He's a swordsman who loves fighting, who's good at fighting, and who's destined to be a warrior. When she looks at him, she must see someone who has it easy. Everything just comes naturally to him, while she's constantly subjected to her father's overbearing lectures and fruitless attempts to awaken this sealing power. What's poetic though is how she ends up awakening it. Link is nearly done in by an army of guardians, and Zelda, in a desperate struggle, unleashes her sealing power at the perfect time. This might seem like a Deus Ex Machina, and it might be. It's possible I'm reading too much into it, but I think she struggled to awaken the sealing power because of self-doubt. In that moment, she tried to save the person who she'd been rejecting for a long time because he reminded her of her own failures. She wasn't just accepting Link here, she was accepting herself. The feeling she developed for Link also marked the first time that her passion and destiny intersected. It might be a reach, but after everything else that happened in the flashback, that's my takeaway. Now, everything I've just described does happen in flashbacks, and again, the main plot of Breath of the Wild is just nothing. But backstory is still story. It's not perfect by any means. While I appreciate the development of Zelda, the King, and even Link, the 4 champions are forgettable archetypes that add very little to the narrative. Again, I'm not going to pretend this is a perfect story, but when you stack it up to Tears of the Kingdom, well, the plot of that game is almost just as nothing, and the backstory is garbage. I don't really feel like going over every single plot hole, it's all been covered pretty thoroughly, and of course Zelda's sacrifice being completely meaningless cheapens the moment. But the main disappointment of this story for me is that every way Breath of the Wild broke the mold with its narrative was scrapped in Tears of the Kingdom. Zelda's quirky obsession with science and research is basically gone. She's instead been relegated to good, virtuous, kind-hearted princess again. Any real conflict in this game is between good versus evil. When 2 good guys interact, it is always pure and noble. Animosity is reserved exclusively for good guys encountering bad guys. That wouldn't be as much of a problem if Ganondorf was interesting, but he has just as much nuance here as he did when he was a glob of shit, and Link himself is completely absent from the backstory altogether. It seems like the game was really proud of its backstory too, with how much it repeats that shit in the present day. I don't get it. But that strange departure from Zelda norm in Breath of the Wild, that moment where characters were allowed to be human, was lost in this game. Anyway, that's all for this video. See you guys next time.